Hello students, welcome Hoshamdeep and Hosh Galdanis. Today the novel we are going to discuss is The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. We are going to discuss the background of this novel, the background of author, we are going to discuss summary, we are going to discuss the major characters, conflicts, themes and the important university questions. So let's move to the contents. Here is the list of the contents we are going to discuss today. I have divided this topic in discussion in two parts. In part 1, we are going to discuss the introduction of author and novel. We are going to discuss the summary in details. And in part 2, we are going to discuss characters, themes, important issues of debates, quotations, and important university questions. So today I am going to cover part 1. Let's start our discussion. First of all, we are going to discuss George Eliot. George Eliot is one of the representative novelists of Victorian era. She was an English poet, translator, and a journalist. She was born on November 22, 1819 in Warwickshire. Her real name was Mary Ann Evans. She used the pen name of a man in order to win a reputation of an intellectual. Now the point arises that why did she use the pen name of a man? As we all know that in the Victorian society, in the earlier phase of the Victorian society, women were not considered as somehow intellectuals and wise beings. So it wasn't customary for a woman on that time to become a writer and to become an intellectual. That's why in order to win the attention of public, in order to make her voice heard, she had to use the pen name of a man. So she used the pen name of a man in order to win a reputation of an intellectual. Okay, she got international recognition as a representative Victorian novelist with her novels Adam Bede, The Mill on the Floss, Middlemarch, Daniel Deronda, Romola, Silas Marner. So these are the important works of George Eliot. Let's come to discuss the nature of themes of George Eliot's novels. She had won prestige for her realist themes. So she is a realist writer. She's popular for dealing with the perspectives of human psychology in her novels. Now, this is not only a Victorian feature but also a modernist feature, because the growing tendency towards individualism and preferring to discuss human psychology, these issues are prevalent in the modernist literature, but this very writer, she belongs to the Victorian era. So on that time she has some zest of modernity in her themes and in her approach. Her novels deal with the aspect of deep psychological penetrations of humans. Her reason for choosing a male pen name is actually due to the same psychological reasons. She wanted to be heard and taken seriously, as women were not considered wise and strong beings on that time. As I have already told you that she had to use the pen name of a man in order to make her voice heard and accepted by the society of that time that wasn't in favor of women to become intellectuals and to become the writers. It wasn't normal for that society. So she wanted her voice to be heard and accepted. That's why she had to use that pen name of a man. Let's move to the next slide. She had won public fame with her novel Adam Bede, but her recognition as a woman writer after 15 years of her writing career, uh, and it had left the readers in complete shock. I have just mixed two sentences in this slide, but in fact, I just wanted to say that she George Eliot, she won public reputation from her novel Adam Bede, and she had got her actual recognition as a woman writer after 15 years of her writing career, and it had left the readers in a complete shock, as it wasn't customary for a woman to be such a prolific writer on that time. But this didn't cause any harm to her popularity among the decent readers. So uh, she was accepted as a woman writer after the 15 years of her writing career. And it had shocked her readers, but it didn't harm her popularity as a writer. When we talk about George Eliot as a writer, then we have come to know that as a writer and as a woman writer, she wasn't only a realist but also a reformist, particularly reformist in the religious sense. She had to uh, speak against the imposed norms of religion on an individual. So that's why she had just brought some kind of religious reformations through her novels. She portrayed the characters in a real world. She didn't ever fantasize her characters. Common man and woman were represented suffering due to the tyranny of social changes in her novels, and the trends of rapidly emerging industrial and capitalist society were shown, putting people in a terrible state of affairs. So, in George Eliot's novel, she had portrayed the characters suffering due to the emerging social changes, the industrialism, the capitalistic tendencies of the society that had made uh, the specific side of the society, the common man, that had made the common man to suffer economically, socially, and psychologically. She had never reflected fantasy in her characters' lives. Let's come to the novel, The Mill on the Floss. First of all, I'm going to discuss the introduction of this novel. The very novel, The Mill on the Floss, it was published in 1860, and it tells the story of two siblings, Tom and Maggie Tulliver. The siblings grew up playing on the bank of the river Floss. Yeah, the very novel has settings on the bank of the river Floss, and the village's name is St. Ox. The time period it reflected, or it shows, it shows is almost around 1800, and the time span of the very novel is consisted of approximately 10 to 15 years. The story revolves around two brother and sister. Means the story revolves around a brother and a sister growing up in a conflict between religion and individual's will. The novel is a classical work of that century because it shows that on one hand there is the issue of spiritual determinism, and on the other hand there is the issue of free will. So the conflict is genuinely depicted in this novel. And as I have already told you, the novel is consisted of the time span of 10 to 15 years. Let's move to the summary of this novel. The novel, The Mill on the Floss, opens with the narration of an unnamed narrator. Yeah, the novel is written in almost written in a third person narration. The novel opens with the narration of an unnamed narrator, and we have never come to know about the name and identity of that narrator. And the very narrator is visioning the Dorlcote Mill. The mill, it was situated on the river. The mill was situated on the river, and it was owned by the family, Tulliver family. So the narrator is just visioning the Dorlcote Mill on the river Floss in the beginning, and the very narrator also imagines the siblings playing on the bank of the river near the mill. On the other hand, Mr. and Mrs. Tulliver, we find them discussing the education of their only son Tom, because they had two children, Tom and Maggie. Mr. Tulliver, Maggie and Tom's father and the owner of the mill and farms, decided to send him, means Tom, to school for education. Tom is elder than Maggie. He was sent to school of Mr. Stelling. Tom, on his return from school in the summer vacation, realized that Maggie, the younger sister, caused the killing of his rabbits. Why? Because Maggie forgot to feed them. Maggie loved her brother so dearly, yet she only got his coldness in response. Soon, Mr. Wickham's son, Philip Wickham, joined the school of Mr. Stelling, and then there were two students, Tom and Philip, in that school. But Tom and Philip, they both considered each other as their enemy because of the issues between their fathers, means Mr. Wickham and Mr. Tulliver. Maggie visited the school and met Philip Wickham. Philip Wickham got inspired of Maggie's intelligence, and hence he fell in love with Maggie gradually, not immediately. When Maggie came to school with her cousin Lucy, she had to face the devastated news of her father's farm and mill and property. Then she had to leave the school, she had to go back, but after some time, they had to Tom had to leave for his father's sickness and bankruptcy, because on one hand his father got bankrupt, and on the other hand he fell severely ill due to some stroke. And after that stroke, he could only recognize his son Tom, and nobody else. Tom started working with his uncle Tane's help, because after the family got devastated due to their financial loss and the whole property was taken over by Mr. Wickham, nobody was ready to help them financially, but the relatives, they just tried to help them by bringing things for them, by bringing the things and the food supply and this type of things for them, but nobody was interested in helping them financially. Although Mrs. Tulliver, she visited her sisters, she visited her relatives to ask for help, but they didn't help. They were not ready to help them financially. But due to the fear of public reputation, they helped them by bringing things for them, bringing. Uh, but Tom, he eventually, after a great effort and pleading, Tom, he just convinced his uncle Dean, and he started a business with them. He started working with Uncle Dean's help. On the other hand, Maggie got a gift of books from Bob Jakin, who is a childhood friend of Maggie, and those books were based on some spiritual knowledge and self renunciation. Maggie got inspired of those books, and she developed an egotistical personality after reading those books. Maggie fell in love with Philip Wakem, but due to their issues with Mr. Wakem, this led to the end of their relationship and their friendship. As Tom, when he came to know about the friendship between Philip and Maggie, he just prevented Maggie to meet him or to visit him. He wasn't happy with that friendship. Later, she got inspired of Stephen Guest, who was the lover of her cousin Lucy. She also, Stephen also fell in love with Maggie, and once they eloped, and this elopement, it caused disgrace on Maggie's reputation. This was a great harm, this was a great damage to the whole family's grace, and especially to Maggie's reputation. And after that, she wasn't welcomed by anyone who knew that. Maggie felt the guilt of deceiving her cousin, Lucy, while Lucy, on the other hand, tried to reconcile Philip Wakem and Maggie. On the other hand, during the course, Tom earned enough to get his father's property back, but Mr. Tillyward died in a stroke during a fiery argument and fight with Mr. Wakem, as they wanted their mill and farm back from him. After Tom's denial in keeping Maggie at his home, Maggie had to leave her house. Although Maggie's mother supported her a lot, she tried to work as a governance of children at local Calergy Dr. Ken's house, but due to her reputation, she had to leave that place as well. And later, she got a space at Bob Jenkins' house. She received two letters there. One was from Philip, and the other one was from Stephen. Philip forgave her, while Stephen was pleading to marry him. But out of the guilt, she decided to leave it for the good. When Maggie was at Bob's house, she got the news of a worst flood and managed to leave in a boat. The mother was out of town, so she was saved. Well, she managed to rescue her brother from Dorlcote. They had a moment of resolution to survive. But the ferocious flood swept everything. Tom and Maggie left in a boat, but due to some issues of landslide, they got buried there. So at the end, this was the end of the siblings that they buried near to each other. The whole novel, it tells us a situation, it clarifies the situation, and it shows it shows a conflict between the individual and, on the other hand, the spiritual determinism. And at the end, it had just caused the collapse of both of the human beings. We will discuss the themes in the next video. Thank you so much for today. Allah Hafiz.